Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Indie Music channel. On this channel, we talk about all things indie music. We talk about punk music. We talk about alternative music. And really, I just want to give a huge shout out to you guys. There is going to be a huge video coming out soon that I did similar to last year. We actually surpassed our second year here on this channel. But what I want to do is celebrate different milestones that we just hit on this channel. But anyway, we're going to get into more of that. Like I said, I'm even making a whole video on that. This video is about Andrew. Oh man, I keep forgetting how to pronounce his last name. I just looked it up. McMahon. McMahon, there it is. Andrew McMahon. Now, before I begin this video, he is the lead singer, the brains behind Something Corporate, behind Jack's Mannequin, and behind his own solo group. But if you have not seen a documentary about him that is entitled Dear Jack, please watch the documentary Dear Jack first, or start doing some research into that documentary first. I highly recommend it because it's almost firsthand footage of Andrew, especially the time period that I'm going to really highlight in today's video, which is pretty much right when Everything in Transit was made, which is Jack's Mannequin very first debut album. So first, before we begin, and before, of course, we get to that time period, who is Andrew McMahon? Well, he, like I said, has been a part of a few, I would say, indie groups. I would put him in kind of the pop punk crowd. I don't quite know if that fits him exactly, but, it's kind of that alternative pop punk crowd from the early 2000s where pop punk was becoming extremely popular and was a little bit into the mainstream. And that's a lot of like what Something Corporate is, Jack's Mannequin is. And he himself moved a lot growing up. He taught himself music, he taught himself piano, and he wasn't quite sure if he wanted to get into music, especially since he said he didn't really fit into the California scene, kind of just being uprooted so much. But Andrew also credits a lot of his music playing from his mother, where he learned and listened to her, I believe, playing music. It's kind of unclear what he meant, but he learned a lot of it by ear. In fact, he said for the longest period of time, he couldn't even read music during like his beginning stages of being a musician. But what he decided to do was, at the end of high school, him and a group of friends kept performing, even winning a battle of the bands. And even though that band that won ended up not moving forward, a big chunk of that group and then a few extra members decided to form the band Something Corporate. Their debut album as a band actually saw them going through an indie label. But what was happening was word of mouth was really starting to spread, especially about Andrew himself, even though the band was also getting rave reviews. But their constant touring and musical connections got them in touch with a lot of big acts. In fact, being able to perform on the Warped Tour back then, and then even opening up for New Found Glory as well. Something Corporate is, I guess, still kind of a band. They hinted at a reunion back in 2023, but I didn't really see anything else or if anything kind of become of that. But already Andrew was starting up another project, and of course that leads to the band Jack's Mannequin. Now, Jack's Mannequin didn't face, or rather, Something Corporate didn't face any kind of bad ending to the band. What happened was Andrew was consistently making and producing new music all the time, and Something Corporate just kind of hit the end of their tenure. They were exhausted from touring all the time, and Andrew, when he was hearing new music that he was making coming out, he was thinking to himself, man, this really doesn't fit the Something Corporate vibe. This seems like this is almost a completely new sound. So he started to record this music separate from the Something Corporate recording sessions. Now, this kind of circles back to where we started this video. He recorded enough material. Initially, he was going to go solo, but then he, like I said, he decided to kind of form a second group called Jack's Mannequin and perform under that stage name. But literally, I kid you not, you watch the film, the documentary film about him, Dear Jack, and right when Everything in Transit, their debut album, was finishing recording, Andrew had been feeling extremely sick around that time, especially in his throat. It felt like he was constantly ill all the time, and so he decided to come in, of course, and get himself checked out at a hospital where he actually found out he had cancer, lymphoma. So just think of that crazy, crazy time. You know, he's already busy with one band. He's ready to literally hit the ground running with a second one. And then he finds out he has cancer. The good news, though, doctors were very, very optimistic because they caught it somewhat early that he not only could recover, but make a complete full recovery. And that is what the documentary is about. It's interesting because the documentary is actually voiced over by infamous musician Tommy Lee, who narrates it. But he was able to get a complete recovery. In fact, it was his sister that ended up doing a stem cell transplant for him in order for him to get better. He blogged a lot of what was happening to him at the time and released it on a personal website for his fans. And they moved forward with the Everything in Transit record. The rest is really history. You know, Jack's Mannequin, I don't know if I would say they were bigger than Something Corporate, but I mean, they were huge back then in the pop punk scene. So Jack's Mannequin toured until about 2012. And just like Something Corporate, he did end up ending the band as they knew it at the time, but there was definitely no bad blood. In fact, they have done a few reunion shows as well. And Andrew continues to play a few Jack's Mannequin songs on his solo tour, which he has been doing up through this day. Because right after Jack's Mannequin, he simply went under his own name and continued, like I said, he continues to tour to this day. So an amazing story that Andrew has, beating cancer, still continuing to tour. I want to pass it on to you guys here at the end of our video. What do you think of Andrew? Have you heard of Something Corporate or Jack's Mannequin? Comment down below, and I'll see y'all next week.